You are now listening to The Perfect Prana with Kyah Ann. What's poppin'? What's good? Welcome back, my friends, to The Perfect Prana Show. I'm Kyah Ann, your host, a yoga practitioner, a flexologist, a semi-adult on the Chicago scene, and I'm very blessed to be here with you guys. I'm here on my own merit. There's no class forcing me to do this. I have no radio, no platform to support me. To be honest, I had a lot of fear and doubt and laziness and angst and just so much built up that was making me procrastinate. But I'm so happy that I'm sitting here forcing myself to do this. But it's like a nice force though. I appreciate it. Anyways, if you love yoga, this is the perfect place to be. If you don't love yoga, this is still the perfect place to be because I have a lot in store for you all between the yoga news, where I talk about what's going on in the world and how it relates to yoga. Yoga Hills, where I bring on a very special guest and speak to them about their practice and the theme of the week. We're making some changes here. Well, we'll get more into what the theme of the week will be toward the end of the episode. But before we get into all of that, let's center ourselves. Let's take this moment to go inward, to focus on our breath, to focus on our prana, our energy source, our life force. There's a lot of different translations for what prana is. But let's just take a moment to focus on that. No matter where you're at, you are sitting on the couch, you're driving in the car, you're laying in the bed, just take this moment to lengthen out your spine so breath can effortlessly move through you, create a nice line of energy from your tailbone to your crown. Soften over your body completely, create space between your ears and your shoulders. Relax your body fully, relax your face, unfurl your eyebrows if they were furrowed up. Remove your tongue from the roof of your mouth and just notice your breath without controlling it. And gradually begin to deepen your inhales and lengthen your exhales. And let's take a few breaths together in sync. So no matter what breath you're on, go ahead and push out all the air. And with me, inhale through your nose to fill up your belly like a balloon. Exhale, push out all the air and deflate your belly like leaving no air behind. Inhale to fill up your belly, letting the breath travel up to your chest. Exhaling, pushing out all the air. No air left behind, deflating your belly completely. And one more super deep, dramatic breath with me, filling all the way up to the crown of your head. And then exhaling, pushing out all the air. Very dramatic, sigh it out. Let your breath come back to a steady rhythm. 3 deep breaths is all it takes. Let's get on with the show. Yoga news. Yoga teacher suing over neck pain says headstand poses enhance her social media account. Let me tell you a little bit about the story. Basically, she got in a car accident in 2017. I guess she ended up having some neck pain after the car accident. So she says. You know what? I will give her the benefit of the doubt though, because that's a very common thing to happen. I guess it's like hard to prove. Some people always are like, if you get in a car accident, say your neck, they can't really prove that it doesn't hurt. They can't say, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. But she did go to the doctor for it and do physical therapy, and I guess she ended up going through a yoga teacher training at some point since 2017, and she became a yoga teacher and probably, started doing all her yoga poses and posted on Instagram. Maybe she has a little bit of a community. I don't know. I should look her up on Instagram because I need to see what her account looks like now. She couldn't make it to her first court date because she lived in a different country than the car accident, so I guess she just couldn't make it, but she still wanted to carry the case on. She's still trying to sue the other driver for the car accident for her neck pain, and she tells the judge, because they see her Instagram and they see all these headstands and all these crazy yoga poses, and she tells the judge that her Instagram account is her livelihood. Nobody wants somebody sitting in a cross-legged pose. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's a little like laughable. Is her neck really hurting from this car crash still, or is she just trying to get some money? Who knows? Like I said, I will give her the benefit of the doubt, but that is like a common joke that people have. So it is kind of like, ha ha ha, This story did raise a lot of questions in my head, or just like a lot of points in my head, because the truth is that nobody wants to see somebody sitting in a cross-legged position. I mean, like 9 times out of 10 on Instagram, I'm sure that it is the crazy, unattainable looking poses that get the most engagement, or that people are most invested in, or people are just, intently watching. Like, to be honest, and I'm going to say that that's even true for myself. I probably look at crazy postures and movements more, and probably rewatch those videos more than I would at something that looks easy, in air quotes, if that makes sense. And everybody's like that. I mean, we literally just had the World Olympics and everybody's obsessing over gymnastics. Like, we love this stuff. But why? Why is it that we are so captivated by these crazy movements and these postures and these things that look like, the average person can't do? Like, you really have to be putting in some serious time to be able to do something like that. I mean, sitting there and breathing is just as valid yoga as kicking up into a handstand. I think people understand that, but we're all naturally obsessed with things that appear unattainable because we're always wanting more. I mean, should we try to intently watch people sit the way that we intently watch people do some super deep back bend? I mean, should we be watching people do yoga at all? Should we watch yoga practice at all? Because sometimes yoga can be a little personal and intimate. And then it also takes the focus off your own practice and has you thinking about that other person, and you're not in their body. You don't know what they feel. Should we watch people practice? There are some things that I just will not post. Like, it was just too personal. I might have took the video just to see what I looked like, which I do appreciate that. I do appreciate, it's not all about how it looks, but sometimes if I can see like, oh, this is what I was doing, maybe that's why I was getting that pain there, or I could lift my leg a little bit higher and really create a nice line, or I don't know. I appreciate being able to see that. So I do take private videos. I mean, it's like if somebody's sharing it, then why not? But yeah, I don't know. I think it's up to the practitioner if they want to be watched. And then, that goes into a whole topic about ego and like why people post anyways, and what are we really posting our practice for? That's a lot to unpack. But to go back more to the point though, I would like to think you have to be a certain amount of focused and present to do physically demanding postures and movements, which is yoga. When you are being focused and when you're present, that is yoga. There's a lot of aspects of yoga, but that's a big part of it. Somebody could be focused and present just simply sitting there, but I'm watching them kick up and hold a handstand. Like, wow, you must be really focused and really present to be able to hold that. But I don't know what they're thinking though. Maybe some people just have the ability to do certain things without any thought, without any focus at all, and they're just like, yep, and do this, and they just do it in their sleep. That's a possibility too. So sometimes it is just muscle memory, but you can't really see if somebody's doing yoga by just watching them sit there. Still, at the end of the day, it's a valid practice. I am not in anybody's body. I don't know what their yoga experience is like. There was one more question that this story kind of made me think about, and is there anything that automatically invalidates or voids a yoga practice? I don't know. I guess it really depends on who you ask. I'm sure there's a philosopher or some guru out there that has a billion things that automatically invalidate your practice, and no, that's not yoga. But I don't know, like, everybody's gonna have different thoughts about that, and who am I to say, oh, that's not practicing yoga? But I will say, I did have a teacher that said, if you injure yourself while practicing yoga, or if you're hurting yourself while practicing yoga, you are not practicing yoga. That's not yoga. Because part of yoga is being self-aware and content with where you're at. Yeah, you're not really getting the benefits of yoga if you're hurting yourself. I mean, asana, postures, all these movements, they are for us. We are not for the posture, for the movement, for yoga. These tools are meant to help us be better. They're meant to help us feel better in our bodies, to be more focused, to be more mobile, to breathe better. All of these things are meant to help us. If you're hurting yourself while doing it, there's no way it could be helping you. Like, absolutely no way. And that goes back to this yoga teacher who's trying to sue because her livelihood is doing headstands, but she has a neck injury. But she still keeps doing it. Like, what? She says she has to take painkillers for this, which I'm like, this is crazy. There has to be a certain point where you just have to say enough's enough, and I hope she reaches that point. Maybe, hopefully, if her neck is really hurt, which it really might be, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I hope that she wins the case to have her needs met, and she doesn't have to depend on headstands for income. But, I don't know. I think, though, there's other content that she could make that is safer without having to, hurt herself. There has to be another way. There are a lot of people on these platforms that are posting their yoga practice that it's about accessibility and avoiding injuries and working around injuries. And yeah, so I'm like, why not just do something like that and try to find your community that way, instead of trying to find a community through things that you just can't sustain. You can't sustain a headstand for too long if you really have a neck injury. So try to build the community based off something different. Yoga Heals. This week's Yoga Heals. I'm actually so excited for the first episode of season 4, Prana 4.1, to have Divya Bala. She is a New York-based yoga teacher, activist, writer, speaker, and a fellow podcaster. She has her own podcast, Yoga Off the Mat, which speaks about yoga philosophy and quote-unquote decolonizing your practice. She's actually the first person I ever heard say this term, decolonize your yoga practice, which I just found to be very interesting. I love her content. Let's just get on with the conversation. Hi, Divya. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for coming onto my show and being the first guest of this season that I'm starting up. The first question that I ask every single yoga instructor or practitioner that comes onto my show is just about their background with yoga. So when they started practicing yoga and why they still practice yoga today.
I started practicing yoga when I was 12 years old, and it was introduced to me by my mom. She learned some of the basic sun salutation postures when we were living in India a long time ago, and she brought that back with her. That was how I was introduced to it. She just thought it was something that I might enjoy, and it caught on very quickly for me. The reason I have continued to practice yoga now, like it's been 20 years, is because yoga has become a companion in my life. It's become a tool, and it has permeated pretty much every aspect of my life. It's helped me with everything from balancing my emotions to how I carry myself professionally to how I show up in service in my community to just the way that I even sort through my own ups and downs in life. It's become an invaluable tool. So I can't see my life without it.
Thank you for sharing. Honestly, I feel the same way. And of course, I did my research a little bit and I looked at a lot of your content that you posted on YouTube and Instagram. So I'm like a little bit familiar of your background. So what I wanted you to talk about is a little bit of your cultural background and then also yoga in India versus in the US and what your practice or what are the differences that you noticed practicing yoga in one country versus the other?
That's a great question. I honestly can't speak much to practicing yoga in India because I have not, as of yet, been able to practice with a studio there or with, any kind of school in India. I have been wanting to and I've been trying to, but the pandemic thwarted my attempts at being able to do that. So I need to find time moving forward. So my experience is all pretty much in the West. One of the first spaces that I ever practiced yoga with other people, given that, I practiced on my own between the ages of 12 to, I can't remember, but, for the first few years, it was all just me practicing on my own on a mat in the living room. And one of the first times that I, was in a group setting was actually at a temple. So I was raised Hindu and, was deeply involved in many aspects of that spirituality in terms of community life. And on the weekends at a temple that I used to go to with my family, they would have yoga classes. And I remember my mom encouraging me to go, and it was pretty much all older people. I don't think there was anyone below probably the age of 50. And then there I was, this like preteen kid, just trying to like keep a straight face and not, feel awkward and out of place. But it was one of the first spaces that really highlighted how intertwined yoga is with spirituality and how integral that is to your understanding of the practice and how deep the practice can affect you is how open your mind is to spirituality. And that is something that can be a very polarizing topic in the West, especially. I think in many Indigenous and Eastern cultures all around the world, spirituality is an inherent part of your life. It's an inherent part of your community, and it doesn't necessarily have to equate to dogmatic religion, right? Spirituality is more just your sense of awareness about yourself and this sort of extraordinary energy and power that we all hold and what interlinks all of us. So practicing in a temple really like ingrained in me that this is a spiritual practice, it is an energetic practice, and it is not in fact what I grew up thinking it was, growing up in America, that yoga is white women, skinny white women in branded yoga skinny leggings contorting their bodies into certain postures. That's very much the messaging that I grew up with in the 90s and early 2000s about who a healthy person is, what a yogi looks like. And I had to really push back against that image because of what I grew up with and what I knew was true. So, I would say the biggest difference between the way that yoga is taught by the, indigenous practitioners and guides is that spirituality is innately a part of yoga versus the West. It's seen as a much more fitness and workout oriented practice, which we know is not the case.
That's the perfect segue into what I was going to ask you next. But first, I'd like to say, that's something that I really love about Hindu, that religion, and then also Islam, is that they kind of include movement in their spiritual practice and in those religions, which is so important. There is no separation between movement and spirituality. They're very intertwined together. And a lot of people, they might not do yoga, or I've known people that are like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's like a religious practice, or, I don't do spiritual stuff. But it's like, well, we're all spiritual and we all need to move our bodies. That's just important for life in general. So that's just something I really appreciate about the culture that you're from, is that, this movement practice is intertwined into this religion, into this spirituality. So what I was going to ask you next is, because you're the first person I've ever heard speak about a colonized yoga practice or decolonizing yoga. Could you talk about what is a colonized practice? And you said a little bit earlier, but could you talk about what a colonized practice is, and then what does it mean to decolonize your yoga practice?
I think a colonized practice pretty much starts and ends with your mindset and your approach to yoga. So the way that yoga has been colonized, especially in the West, is that it has stripped away, like I said, all those elements of spirituality, of deeper learning of yourself, about energy, about the psychosomatics of the practice. These are all the things that make yoga so magical and transformative, but they're also the same things that have been deemed as, by all types of institutions. They've like kind of stripped away these things and called those things like the bad parts of yoga, or the things that they've demonized it, so to speak. So for me, a colonized practice is one that focuses almost exclusively on the physical aspect of yoga, asana, and then takes that asana practice and makes it almost competitive and strenuous, and no longer uses things like physical postures as a conduit for how to understand your own energy and work with your energy, and instead makes it about achieving a certain look, achieving a certain physique, stamina, like all these things that are so far removed from the intention of asana, that one limb of yoga. And I think a colonized practice is also one in which, the containers of this practice, like spaces in which we practice, do not reflect the communities that these lineages come from. Like yoga is something that exists in different forms and different spiritualities and cultures around the world. And if you go to certain studios and none of the leaders look like people that these practices came from, then there's something to already call into question there. It's not to say that yoga can't be inclusive and people from all walks of life can't reach the position of being a guide or a teacher, but there is a certain amount of study and practice that needs to be required to make someone a more equipped teacher. A lot of the teacher trainings that I have observed in my experience are very formulaic and literally use equations for how the teachers should conduct classes, speak about different topics, or what they can't talk about. And that really limits the student's experience of yoga and can then continue to shape and guide their experience of it moving forward. So that being said, I think a decolonized practice is one where all the elements of yoga are being practiced holistically. So that's things like pranayama, so breath work, using your breath as a conduit of controlling your energy. Focus, which is the practice of dharana, and meditation, which is dhyana, the state of meditation. These are all different aspects of yoga that can be integrated into a day-to-day practice. There are obviously levels to it. So there is the philosophy, studying the niyamas and the yamas, the internal and external code of ethics, understanding how the philosophy can apply into your day-to-day, how you interact with people. It can influence the way that you serve your community, the way that you have relationships. I think a practice that integrates more limbs of Ashtanga yoga, of the 8-limbed path of yoga, is a decolonized practice, and one that pays homage to the lineage as well, the roots, where this stuff comes from, and respecting that.
Yes, I agree. It definitely is just so important to try to weave yoga practice in throughout our whole lives. Because it's like, oh, I can get onto my mat. And that's great. I could do some movement and all, but, I need to look around myself and look at my environment and make sure that I've done my best to make my environment the best that it can be and really uplift my surroundings, making sure that I'm clean on the outside, that I've done all my chores, and that I've maybe even gone outside and did chores outside and picked some things up off the ground, or making sure that, I'm being kind to everybody, and, I'm building positive relationships with people. And there's a lot of aspects that we can, like you said, bring our yoga with us off the mat, which is the name of your podcast, which I'm like, that's pretty genius, yoga off the mat, because there's an opportunity in every single moment to be concentrated, focused, to be present, and just to be mindful. And I guess that's pretty much the whole goal of yoga is, like you said, to really just influence our whole life. So what I wanted to get into next, you spoke about a little bit about the different kind of the types of yoga, if you will. And I'm honestly can't remember all the original tongue for the names, but I guess, of course, you have Ashtanga yoga and then Raja yoga. I wanted you to speak a little bit more about the different types of yoga, and just how people can practice these different types of yoga in their own lives, and maybe how you practice these different types.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 4 primary types of yoga, there's obviously the one that we all know and love, which is Raja Yoga, also known as sort of like the king yoga. Raja means king, but it's known more colloquially as Ashtanga Yoga, or the 8-limbed path of yoga. So those are the 8 limbs that we all know and practice most popularly in the West. And this is a path of yoga that leads to personal enlightenment and spiritual enlightenment. So it teaches us how to interact with the world, both our internal world and the external world. It gives us the tools to move our body and use our body like a technology, as a conduit of energy. So that's what asana comes into play. Same with pranayama, using our breath as a conduit to conduct our energy. And then shifting into, sensory withdrawal and concentration, meditation, eventually leading us to samadhi or enlightenment. So that spiritual awakening where we kind of fully realize on a spiritual level that our energy is the same with everything else around us. So that's the main type of yoga that most of us know. Then we have jnana yoga, which is the yoga of intellect. And I think this is really about learning and about wisdom. The way that I practice jnana yoga is by constantly remaining a student of yoga. So reading, learning from other people, being inquisitive. So thinking about that element of Raja Yoga, Ishvara, or Svadhyaya, is self-study and reflection. I feel like Jnana Yoga is kind of that on a grander scale, is understanding and learning constantly. So referring to spiritual texts, attending talks, constantly being a student of yoga. Then you have Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion. Again, based on how people see spirituality and divinity, this can be a practice of faith in whatever way makes sense for you. So for some people, that might be something that ties into the religion that they practice or believe in. For me, it's more of a spiritual connection. So just understanding how and when the divine shows up in my life and really bowing down to that. So I might practice bhakti yoga in the form of a daily gratitude journaling practice. So in that time, I'm really paying homage to how far I've come in life and giving credit to the things outside of me that also made that possible. And also honoring that my own motivation, growth, and success is part of the divine showing up and guiding me. The way that other people practice bhakti yoga more traditionally is through mantra and chanting. So saying those like divine vibrational sounds through singing, like call and response, which so many cultures have. The call and response and that power of collective consciousness is so huge in generating like healing energy, and bowing down to the divine. And then the final form of yoga is karma yoga, which is the yoga of action. I think people often conflate the term karma with like revenge or what goes around comes around, but karma actually translates to action, and it's about what are you doing? What energy are you creating and putting out there through the actions that you're doing? And it's oftentimes practiced through seva, which is service. So it's like you want to create more good energy, you want to create more good action. So you're giving back, you're helping, you're paying things forward, and perpetuating more good in the world.
Yes, thank you so much. And I know it's like, it can be repetitive because it's like I watched a podcast that you did literally on this topic, but I'm like, I could never stop talking about this topic. And I always want to keep, repetition is the father of learning. So just keep going over these things for myself. And then also for some people, it's like they've never heard this before. And it's like, whoa, I can practice yoga like this. And by me just picking up a book and reading, that's yoga. That could be your yoga practice for the day. What I wanted to ask you is kind of what's your relationship with the 8 limbs of yoga right now? Is there anything that you've had to overcome or that you've struggled with within the 8 limbs that has been like, oh, that was a hard one, or this is something that I'm still facing every single day?
Definitely. I'm one of those people that says I practice yoga every single day, but will you see me on a mat every single day? Absolutely not. Will you see me practicing breath work every day? Absolutely not. Will you see me on a cushion in silence for 30 minutes every day? Absolutely not. Just like you said, for me, my yoga practice is all about addressing all of the different areas of my life in which yoga can apply. So I think in my 20s, something that really benefited me from the yogic pathway, from the 8 limbs, was the niyamas and the yamas. So that those core elements, those core tenets of yoga philosophy, saucha, like you mentioned, purity. So keeping your space clean, keeping your body clean, tapas and, intensity, and trying to build that regularity of your discipline. So setting up routines, whether it's, your morning routine for how you set up your day, your movement routines, practicing different forms of fitness, how you nourish your body, everything to how I deal with the outside world. So my practice of satya, truth telling, Ishvara Pranidhana, Swadhyaya, all these elements of how can I continually dedicate myself and form routines and discipline in my life so that I can show up as the best version of myself. And a lot of these same principles are the ones that have guided me through my own personal ups and downs, growing pains in my 20s, like learning to gracefully let go of relationships or friendships that, were they served their purpose, and kind of letting them be a chapter and not my whole story. Or how I dealt with pivots in my career and embracing change with understanding, with acceptance, to now kind of expanding my vision of what my life can be, using compassion as a tool. All of the stuff comes from those elements of yoga philosophy. And even being more discerning with, for example, career opportunities, it takes an element of concentration of dharana to really be able to weed out and discern what's good for me moving forward, what can I leave behind, and really containing my energy so that it's the best it can be.
Yeah, I'm still constantly facing a lot of the eight limbs of yoga every single day. Like you said, discipline and making sure I'm regular with certain habits. And there's just a few that I've been like, man, this is something that's been hard to grasp, or this is just like a new way to think about it, or I'm literally in the middle of some sort of conflict, or I'm at a crossroads, like I could do this or I could do that, and trying to bring yoga into my mindset, like what's the most ethical thing to do here, what's the thing that would hurt the least amount of people, and that also wouldn't really hurt me, and just kind of trying to make smart sound decisions like everybody is in life. And yeah, it's kind of like almost everybody is on a yogic path, whether they know it or not, because we're all faced with decisions all the time, and we're all like, okay, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? What's the right thing to do? There's a limb of yoga, or not really a limb. I believe it's one of the yamas or the niyamas. But I'm sure you're familiar with it, is Brahmacharya, which is the right use of energy, from what I've looked up and read about it. But some people translate it to celibacy. And this is kind of a controversial limb or controversial aspect of yoga, is like, what does it actually mean? And, you know, if you're not following this, are you practicing yoga? Could you speak about this specific aspect of yoga and just like kind of your thoughts about it?
Yeah, this is definitely one of those controversial topics, as are, if you look at a lot of the original text, some of the translations or even words used, we have to remember that there's context for everything, and that these things were codified in a time that was very different from the one that we currently live in. And even the world that we currently live in, every single day, people's feelings about things are changing, worldviews are changing every day. So what sounds so perfect and solid today, tomorrow could suddenly dismantle. So it's important to keep that in mind when we're analyzing and assessing these ancient texts and applying them to modern day, because if we don't take everything with a grain of salt, everything is going to be controversial. So Brahmacharya is one of the yamas in yoga, and it's something about how we are thinking about our own energy. So if we think about something like pratyahara, which is a sensory withdrawal, it's about removing distractions. It's about closing, kind of closing down our senses a bit so that we can start to go inward and practice dharana, focus, and meditation. We're all always just like stripping down distraction and coming to the core. The way that I think about the eight limbs of yoga is that we're starting with, like, if you imagine yourself as this container, this being, right? We're starting with these outer layers of awareness when it comes to the yamas and niyamas, how we deal with the external world, and then our internal world. And then we're dealing with our body, the physical movement, then we're moving into sensory withdrawal, and then the breath control. And with each limb of yoga, we're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers of ourselves until we're finally at like the core of who we are. So when it comes to brahmacharya, that it's no different. It's just another one of those layers, and it's about how you feel that you can best be in control of your energy. So yes, traditionally it might have referred to an act or a decision such as celibacy, because there's always energetic exchange and physical interaction, whether you're simply speaking to someone or engaging with them on a more intimate level. There's always this like energy that's being exchanged. If you think of us as energetic beings. So, one way of practicing that type of control of your energy can be what some of these texts are referring to as they're interpreted as celibacy. But for other people, Brahmacharya could be literally like maybe practicing silence. There's a meditation practice of Vipassana, and there are many retreats that are well known where people go away for a 10-day silent retreat. That could also be considered a form of Brahmacharya. You're not speaking, you're not energetically putting out something into the universe, you're containing that energy. So it could also be, some people practice fasting for this very reason. They like to control the energy of what's coming into their body and kind of get back to that source. So yeah, there are a lot of different interpretations of it, but I think it's just important to feel like what's right for you and go with that.
Yes. And of course, I am going to ask you, how do you practice this aspect, Brahmacharya, yourself?
For me right now, I would say the best way that I am practicing Brahmacharya is being discerning with what I take on in life. I am an entrepreneur. I also work full time in technology, and I'm a yoga instructor, entrepreneur. I wear many, many hats, and then I have my own personal life as well. And something that I realized in recent years is that when I don't contain my commitments, when I don't contain my energy, I deplete myself of energy, and then I can no longer be of service to anyone because I crash and burn. So my way of practicing focus and redirecting energy is by saying no to things, by being kinder to myself if I have to change my mind and pivot and let go of something. And that also comes into this mindset of scarcity versus abundance mindset. I'm feeling less afraid to let go of things because it just means that I'm going to be able to show up even better for the things that I can commit to. So that's my personal practice.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us definitely underestimate the amount of time that we need just for ourselves. I mean, to me, I think, a lot of people are doing a straight up 9 to 5 work schedule. Right now, my 22-year-old self couldn't imagine him like 9 to 5. Like, that's crazy, just like having to go sit in an office for that amount of time. And, I'm really bound to that place. And, I've, grown up with my mom doing that her entire life. And I knew that she didn't like that, but that's something she's like, I just have to do it. You got to pay the bills and all that stuff. So, I'm really thinking like as I'm getting older, like how am I going to make sure that I have enough time for myself and just, self care and making sure that, like you said, I'm good and ready enough to go out in the world and be my best self. And I hope that that's something that we start to prioritize more in this culture in general, because right now it's all about do, go, 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 hustle, 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 hustle. So hopefully we get to the point where we continue to just prioritize self-care more and just mental health more, physical health more, and making sure people have enough time to really just put care into their bodies, into what they eat, into the physical activities that they get to do. Because if we're working all the time, then it's going to be like, I honestly don't feel like going home and cooking myself a healthy meal tonight. So there's just a lot of ways that we should think about preserving energy just so we can take care of ourselves. Thank you so much, Divya, for sharing your yoga practice with me. What can we expect from you next as far as content and just what you're working on?
Lots of different things. I'm always cooking something. And thank you for having me. It's been really nice to have this discussion. And I love that, even as like sort of young as you are, like you are clearly very wise. And I'm glad that you're thinking about all these topics and integrating them when you're this age, because it's only going to set you up for success. And it's a really important message to share because the times that we do live in right now are very hustle culture oriented. I can't really speak badly on that because it has gotten a lot of opportunities and it's helped me reach a lot of people. But at the same time, you need to mitigate your energy and self-preserve. So yeah, all very important lessons. In terms of what people can expect from me, the podcast will be continuing. Yoga Off the Mat has been just such a long time in the works. I'm loving, producing this podcast, and I'm hoping to do more episodes next year, more regularly. Eventually, I would love to have guests on, but for now, it will continue to be sort of more so a solo educational show. People can also expect more writing from me, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. I've been leaning into a lot more written material and resourcing, so that will continue to expand next year onward. And people can always practice with me. I have a free library of classes on YouTube that I encourage people to engage with. It's meant to be free resources. I specifically don't charge for that because I want it to be accessible to people. And in terms of content, social media, I'll continue to disseminate information in short form, digestible content so people can understand just how easy it is to apply what seems like really complex practices into their day-to-day lives by just approaching it one little change at a time.
So before my guest part, I always ask them to lead a short pranayama or just like a short breath work, just because even saying the word breathe is so powerful and it just reminds people right there, let me take a deeper breath.
Yeah, of course. I actually just taught this pranayama this morning for a class. So Viloma pranayama is a practice that's quite similar to Nadi Shodhana, which is alternate nostril breathing, which most of us know and love well. But this one utilizes two different types of breath. It uses a step form of breath and a smooth, long breath. So we'll start the same as we do for alternate nostril breathing by plugging our right nostril and just using our left nostril to breathe. So we'll start by taking a step inhale on the left. So imagine that your breath is like a stream of water and you're controlling the faucet by turning it on and off. So it sounds a bit like. And then at the end of the breath, you're going to go ahead and close your left nostril and breathe out one smooth exhale through the right. One smooth inhale through the right, same nostril, and step exhale through the left. So when you repeat this starts to, it slows you down mentally because it requires so much coordination of the mind to remember which side you're stepping and which side is smooth. But it also helps you to expand your breath capacity, which is great for your lung health and your respiratory system. So we can do that one more time together. Step inhale through the left. Smooth exhale right. Smooth inhale right. And step exhale left. Yeah, so that's the practice.
Thank you so much, Divya. As I like to say, the light in me bows to the light in you. And that is our conversation. Namaste. You're listening to the Perfect Prana Show Underground. I'll be putting Divya's information in the show notes if you'd like to check her content out or connect with her. Theme of the week. Yes. I used to do weekly wellness challenge. I don't know, I was ready for something new and I wanted to take the show and my practice. I just wanted to take things to the next level, okay? So I came up with a new idea and I will be having themes of the week. And it's something that I've been doing for some of my classes when I teach at the gym or teach at the yoga studio I've been teaching at. I will kind of have a theme and I'll include a lot of movements following this theme, which I'm sure a lot of yoga teachers kind of have a thing like that. But, I guess maybe we all think about it in different ways, which my themes vary week to week. It could just be like a certain movement that is like, really repetitive or yeah, we'll get more into it. But here's the exciting thing about the theme of the week. I will be making yoga videos on YouTube at Consistently Kyah, consistently spelled with a K, Kyah spelled Kyah. I will be posting my yoga videos there. And then also little snippets on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram to stay updated at Consistently Kyah. Again, consistently spelled with a K, Kyah spelled Kyah. I will be making yoga videos to go along with the themes and show kind of what I would teach in a class for the theme of the week. This week's theme is sun, sunshine, Surya. Why? Why is the theme of the week sun? Well. There's a few reasons. I mean, it's fall time. It's kind of the beginning. We're getting really close to the middle of October, and the sun is about to go bye-bye. It's been setting earlier every day. We're almost close to daylight's saving time. Or no. It's fall back. We're almost close to that fall back time period. Today might have been the last nice day of October. You know, we just been counting down the days till the weather is officially cold, and it's like, ugh. So, I just wanted to talk about the sun a little bit. And then something else to know is sun salutation, Surya Namaskara, sun salute, is the basis of most yoga practices. If you go to a yoga class, you are probably going to go through a sun salutation, which it's like, why? Why is it always about the sun salutation? I don't know, it just is. You know, you can kind of infer what the theme for next week, because, you know, if I'm going to do sun, I have to do the moon salutation. But you know, as much as I love the moon salutation, it doesn't fit into an hour yoga class the way that sun salutation does. And I guess it's just one of those things. I tried, you know, every once in a while I might pull the moon salutation out in a yoga class, but it doesn't flow the same. Sun salutation is a little bit easier to digest, even for a beginner. So I did look up a little history about the sun salutation, Surya Namaskara, and the history is very unclear. It's about 450 years old, but it wasn't really popularized till the 20th century when an Indian ruler wanted native Indians to be, you know, more into physical fitness and also just more disciplined to become independent. So, you know, they were training, like, you know, we need to get our discipline together so we can get our independence. So it was popularized in the early 20th century. The Western world was like, we love that, we're doing that. And it is a really amazing scientific practice. And I mean, like, I never realized this, but the original way that Surya Namaskara is practiced, the classical way, there are 12 poses. And then to do one full cycle of it, it's 24 poses total. And there's 24 hours in a day. Like, and it, you know, it's the sun salute. It even kind of follows the pattern of the sun, of how you start, you know, you're up and then you go down and then you come back up again, which I'm like, that's really cool. It's like, how did they come up with this? Like, they really put some thought into it, to matching it to the natural order of how things work. I'm like, wow. And it's meant to be practiced before the sunrise for some extra magical benefits. Have I ever done that though? No. I'm not a morning person. I'm not at that stage in life yet. Will I ever practice a sun salutation before sunrise? Maybe. You know, I gotta take baby steps to building that type of discipline and be for real with myself. I got to be. But yeah, this is a very pinnacle part to yoga. The founder of Ashtanga, Patabi Joyce, says there is no Ashtanga without sun salutation. And really, there isn't. If you've ever taken an Ashtanga class, like the first movements you'll do is the sun salutation. You know, they kind of use it as a warm-up. It builds heat up in the body. You get the blood circulation. You're jumping, you're stretching, you're doing all the great things that you need to do for the rest of the Ashtanga practice, which gets pretty crazy. Anyways, this week I'll be posting my version of Surya Namaskara because I have added some things to it that I feel are necessary for my wellness. And if you ever take a yoga class with me, you'll probably do my variation of Surya Namaskara. So of course I'm going to post it on YouTube, and the challenge for you is to follow along with it if you're into yoga practice or maybe want to get into it. So yeah, it's been so lovely, you all. I'm so happy to be back. If you are a yoga teacher, a practitioner, a breathwork facilitator, a meditation guide, or it doesn't really matter, you know, somewhere within that field of work, and you're interested in coming onto the show and speaking about your practice, you want to talk more about what you're doing and what you got going on, promote something, feel free to hit me up on Instagram at consistently Kyah, consistently spelled with a K, Kyah spelled Kyah. My DMs are open. With that being said, the light in the dark in me bows to the light in the dark within you. Namaste.